Ilara stood in the center of her grandfather's dusty study, holding an inheritance that felt like a riddle. It was a blank parchment of extraordinary quality and a compass that didn't point north. Instead of the cardinal directions, its needle hovered over 4 strange icons: a solid brick, a clockwork gear, a swirling leaf, and a jagged lightning bolt. "The world is not one place, Ilara," her grandfather's final letter had read. "It is many systems. To map them, you must first understand how they move." Her journey began in the Valley of Stone. Here, the world was rigid and predictable. The mountains were perfect pyramids, and the trees were stout, rectangular pillars. Ilara found a massive water wheel jammed by a fallen slab. Beside it lay a weathered book titled "The Best Practice." She didn't need to guess. She followed the manual's simple diagrams. The cause was clear. The effect was certain. She moved the stone, and the wheel turned. On her map, the compass pulsed over the brick icon, and a perfect grid appeared on the paper. The terrain shifted into the clockmaker's labyrinth, a city of interconnected brass towers and humming wires. Here, the path wasn't obvious. Ilara met Jasper, a man wearing a dozen magnifying lenses over his eyes. "This is a place for deep divers," Jasper explained, pointing to a massive silent engine. "It isn't simple like your valley. It is complicated. You must analyze the blueprints before you touch a single screw." Ilara watched as Jasper began to dismantle a complex valve, his movements precise and practiced. Jasper handed Ilara a silver wrench. Together, they spent hours tracing the flow of steam through the labyrinth's veins. Unlike the valley, this system required expertise and time, but it still followed the laws of logic. Once they identified the faulty gear, the engine roared back to life. On her map, the compass settled on the gear icon, and the parchment filled with intricate technical schematics that required a keen eye to read. Beyond the labyrinth lay the shifting woods. The air smelled of damp earth and magic. As Ilara stepped inside, the trees moved behind her, and the path she walked simply dissolved into wildflowers. The compass needle swung wildly toward the swirling leaf. This was not a place for manuals or blueprints. The system was complex. It was alive. Every action she took changed the environment around her. If she stepped left, the forest grew tall. If she sang, the leaves turned silver. Ilara realized she couldn't master the woods. She could only dance with them. She began to probe, testing small actions to see how the forest responded. She left a trail of breadcrumbs, and they turned into glowing mushrooms that marked a safe passage. Patterns began to emerge from the chaos, not because she forced them, but because she observed how the system behaved. On her map, the leaf icon glowed, and the parchment blossomed with organic watercolor swirls that shifted as she moved. Suddenly, the earth shook. Ilara stumbled into the shattered peaks just as a volcano erupted. The sky turned black with ash, and fire rained down. This was the chaotic system. There was no time for manuals, no time for experts, and no patterns to observe. The compass needle vibrated violently over the lightning bolt. "Act!" she cried out to a group of stranded travelers. She didn't wait to plan. She grabbed a hand and pulled them toward a stone archway, acting instinctively to create a pocket of order in the madness. The eruption subsided, but Ilara found herself wandering into a thick, white mist. This was the fog of disorder. She couldn't tell if the ground was stone, gear, leaf, or fire. The compass needle spun in circles, unable to find a home. She felt a rising panic, a need to run, to fix, to map. But the more she moved, the more lost she became. She realized that in the fog, the only right move was to stop. "You've learned the hardest lesson of all," a voice said. A woman named Mina emerged from the mist, carrying a lantern. Mina was the master cartographer, her own map a kaleidoscope of all the terrains Ilara had crossed. Disorder is the state of not knowing which system you are in. When you are there, you must stop and assess. You cannot use the rules of the valley to survive the peaks, nor the logic of the labyrinth to navigate the woods. Elara looked down at her own map. It was no longer blank. It was a masterpiece of shifting styles, grids, schematics, watercolors, and bold strokes of light. She realized the compass wasn't a tool for finding her way home. It was a tool for finding her way through truth. Wisdom was not knowing all the answers, but knowing which rule set to apply to the world in front of her. Elara smiled, tucked the compass into her belt, and stepped forward into the unknown, ready to map whatever system came next.